This is Dr. Bill Janishak. Welcome to the Conquering Stress podcast. Another great episode talking about everything stress. I always start these off talking about stress is physical, chemical, and emotional, and the body's going to react to those things in the other way. So because of that, we get to talk about a myriad of symptoms and processes about how people stress, because we all go through stress, right? And sometimes I'll talk, like we've done a lot about fitness, and that's physical stress. And we've done things on metabolic weight loss, weight gain, poor energy, things like that. And then there's the emotional stress. And as you guys all know, I'm a big fan of watching people win and getting them and just looking at their story. And when we go back and if we can connect the dots, there's always a framework that we have. And I'm a big, if we go back over that, we know that it's always going to be part of the hero's journey. And if you're new to this and you haven't heard this, look around on the channel and we'll probably have something on the hero's journey, because once you kind of get that framework, you're going to recognize so many amazing things in that. And actually, I want to highlight that today on somebody that I think you guys are going to resonate with wonderfully. If you guys are in business, you own a business, you're in a corporate setup, or even a volunteer, anytime when you're working into a group and you're part of a team, and you have a job to do, you're going to be around people. Well, you take that same thing, and sometimes people will go off and they go, I like doing this, but I really love and I'm passionate about something. And there's something inside you that just kind of calls to you. And it could be world's biggest quilt. It could be like climbing Mount Everest. It could be, if everybody seems to have a book or a story in front of them. And if you're listening to this, I'm going to encourage you to go out and do that, because that's part of who you are. Everything that we do here at the Conquering Stress podcast, my chiropractic, my wellness clinic, is to take care of the meat suit. And that's everything that we have in here, and our physiology, because for the sole purpose is that it carries our spirit and our dreams and the things that make us uniquely us. We're not our 155 pound rock hard solid body, and we are not our haircut, and we are not our clothes, but we're the spirit inside of us that makes us individual and unique. And don't ever forget that, because even though you are watching this on some sort of platform that has to do with social media, we get a lot of people comparing themselves to somebody else to get some validation. And I don't want you to do that, because you're perfect how you are right now, based on all the experiences that you have happen. And the interesting thing is that we all go through something. We're figuring it out. Life is not all sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns. It is a series of challenges. And the Stoics way back in the day, and even you find this in the Bible, the reason, life is hard, and it's supposed to be hard because that's how we learn and that's how we grow. And no man is, and when I say man, I mean women too, so don't send me any letters. But we're always excited when we're progressing, and sometimes progressing looks really fun, and then sometimes it takes a little work, and we got to go through some challenges, and it's sweat, and it's pain, and it's maybe depression or anxiety. And we all go through that. There's seasons on those. And then if we recognize it for what it is, which is a period of learning and growth, and we're going through it for a reason, because we want a challenge, because we want to overcome and say, I did that. I always say that we want to experience life for 80 years. We don't want to experience 1 year of life 80 times. So it's a constant growth. With that being said, I want to introduce Jessica Kice. And Jessica, come on up over here and talk to me. And let's dive in. And you are the host of the awesome podcast Connecting the Dots, which I was just talking about. But before we dive into that, I want to talk about how Tell us about your day job.
So my day job, I'm a project manager. I have my own project management consulting firm, and the current project I'm staffed on is a data governance project.
Okay, so
So
now explain that because you explained it to me before we went, and I went, that sounds boring or exciting. But what is that?
yeah, so data governance. Basically, you know how everybody wants to use AI, everybody wants automation, everybody wants things to just be easier as it relates to technology. Well, in a corporate setting, you have to make sure all of your data is good first to use all the cool tools and do innovation and be on the forefront of the latest advancement in technology. So, what does that mean? It means the information in your databases, let's say database one needs to match database two, let's say it's customer and sales data. Processes need to be consistent amongst all the different groups within your organization. Um, Procedures, process and procedures, so policies, so making sure that people are actually adhering to data security, for example. People aren't using the same type of token login for a particular tool, for example, and then making sure people actually adhere to it. So it's a lot of cleanup, a lot of making sure people are aware of the best practices with certain tools and they're aware of the best practices with, let's say, managing your databases and your cloud databases so that you can implement AI, you can use the latest tools and technology.
Wow. So when it comes down to that, we're talking about data in and data out. So if you want great data to come out to be able to use in AI corporate setting, whatever you're doing, you've got to make sure that it's clean.
Yeah.
That kind of it for us muggles and us lay people.
Yes, that's correct.
So what kind of challenges do you get in that? What are the main aspects that create dirty data? I mean, logins and stuff, but
Yeah.
what is there anything else?
Well, let's say you have a lot of in corporate setting, you have an ERP. Let's say it's like a Salesforce, for example, and you have multiple salespeople inputting things about customers, and then you have the C-suite that wants to see the reports and the trends and the aggregate story of what's going on with their customers, the end-to-end journey. You have your prospects, you have your leads, you have the deals closed, you have payment, payment terms and everything. So all that's stored in databases. And so if your sales team, let's say Jack is inputting things differently than I'm going to say Bill, but your name's Bill.
Well, that's all right. I don't put anything in right anyway, so that would be appropriate.
Yeah. So and let's say Jack puts in all the fields that's required and puts things in the right way. And then let's say Bill skips things, maybe puts in spaces in alphanumeric field, for example. The data is not going to flow from database one to database two because database two is expecting a particular format of the data. And if Bill put in things wrong, it won't, there'll be errors flowing into that database or it won't even make it depending on how that database is configured.
Okay. Well, cool. So that would, in sense, for the frame of this podcast, cause stress into the system, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So more excitingly, not to discount the job that you're doing, but more excitingly, you are also the host of the podcast Connecting the Dots.
Yes.
And connecting the dots is taking people's stories and looking back and watching their journey getting from point A to point B. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
So why connecting the dots? Why not, proper data entry for corporate settings for your ERP system, or why not, um, Poodle's skirt podcast or whatever? But why connecting the dots?
Connecting the dots because for you to be your best self, you need to make sure all the different various aspects of yourself are how you want them to be, working properly, being optimal.
So when we were talking before, you had mentioned, I'm like, well, why that? And how did you? And you said you'd always wanted to do a YouTube channel and just kind
Yeah.
of do that. So when you first thought about, I want to be a YouTuber and I
Yeah.
want to have my channel
Yeah.
and I have this thing to talk about and this thing that I want to get out there.
Yeah.
Was connecting dots like the first one, or did you have like other ideas?
So it's funny about the name. I never really had a name for what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to share my story first and share some of the things that I went through and how I overcame them so that I could function, let's say, or how I overcame them, let's say, so my health improved. And if my health improved, then I'm improving my performance at work, for example, or my relationships are more meaningful because I have the energy to nurture those relationships, right? So with connecting the dots, it was kind of, conversations with different people. Like, this is the concept that I'm going for, but I'm not sure of the name. And then in just chatting with it with my husband, he came up with the name and I'm like, huh, that's perfect because I'm connecting all these different parts of myself to show the whole story of my evolution, my life journey, my hero story to help other people.
Yeah, and I that's what I think was so fascinating. Why I wanted to have you on here because, like I said right in the intro, I said we'll talk about physiology and we'll talk about the hero's journey and we'll talk about weight loss things and because all those things are stress. But the most fascinating stories that we got are people just like you. It was like I did this thing and I want to share it. And I want and it's funny, not a lot of people. So you had a diet thing that you went through, right? You said you had gained weight. How much overweight were you, or out of your ideal weight were you?
30 pounds.
30 pounds.
Yeah.
So people will have 30 pounds. Sometimes it's 5 pounds. Sometimes it's 50 pounds. Sometimes it's 150 pounds. And they try and they try and they try, and then you finally hit your groove. Um, and once you hit your groove, and this is universal. So everybody listening, I talk about how great people are because like when I see people come in, I can see all the potential and the greatness in there. And until they reflect just like you did, was we go like, I'm here and I'm in a good place and I feel good about myself. How did I do this? Oh, I did this and then that, and then this caused that. And when you connect the dots, I don't know anybody that's actually done that and said, you know what, I'm just going to keep this a secret just for me because screw everybody else. I've got the secret sauce. No, you want to go out and share it because it's like I said, you've conquered something. You've done your hero's journey. Um, when was the moment that you went and you actually connected your dots?
Hmm. I would say I had bits and pieces of connecting my dots throughout my life just because I've always journaled. But recently, I feel like I've been going through monumental connecting the dots, like just thoroughly end to end with my life. So I would say that biggest aha moment was probably last year, June.
Why all this? So you've been journaling your whole life and you've been writing about it was a wonderful day and he finally kissed me. He
Oh
proposed
no,
today. I
I
got the
wasn't
job.
writing that type of stuff. I'm like, no, it wasn't like that. I would write about the stuff that bothered me, about how I'm feeling, cycles I feel like I'm in,
Yeah.
or, you know, just certain situations I've gone through. And I'm like, this isn't ideal. My goals and dreams that seemed so far away. And constantly asking myself, how can I become this person that I know I can be?
So it's interesting is like my whole adult life as I started to actually introduce that You can actually work on yourself, and there's personal development. I don't even think they called it way back in the day. It was just like organization and goals, and it was really weird. And from the very get-go, everybody I talked to said, well, you need to journal. And I've tried. I couldn't even count how many times. It was like how a lot of people diet. It was like, oh, well, it's, every 6 months I try again. And it would go 2 weeks, 3 months, maybe 6 months at a stretch, but it never stuck until about 4 or 5 years ago. I did just like you did. I'm like, oh, I feel like shit right now
Yeah.
because like I want this, and then I know X, Y, and Z, and I should be doing that. Why I'm not doing? And I always found that once I started doing that, a lot of times during that writing session, I would figure something out, or I would introduce something else to myself. So it's very interesting to emote and figure these things out, and then I would go back over. But it's a non-negotiable part of my day now, and I now have I'm like 1,856 straight days of journaling at least once a day.
Wow.
It's something I don't I'll miss breakfast, or I'll miss a shower, but I never miss journaling, because if I don't do that, then my mind's not set out straight.
Mm.
So it kind of goes back into your data thing. Is if I start my day out and I'm writing, I usually write whatever pops in my head, but then I go, my intentions for today are, I'm going to get X, Y, and Z accomplished. I'm going to move forward on this. I'm going to not do this. I'm going to focus on boundaries, whatever it is. And I don't always do it, but it'll repeat itself until finally I'll realize, like, oh yeah, I guess it caught. It's like journaling. I never told myself, all right, from now on, I'm just going to journal a day. But I look forward, because it's almost like my friend.
Yeah.
But the point being is saying all of that is that you were always a journaler. So you always had these dots going on. When
Mhm.
you go, when you said, I'm at my place and I've always journaled, and then I journaled this and I tried this diet, or and then I tried this. Did you see it clearly, or did you sit there and ponder?
So it's interesting. At certain times I would journal things out, and sometimes the answer wasn't really clear to me, right? Because of other influences on my decision making or processing. For example, with the yo-yoing diet, so this was early on in my marriage, and I'm still learning my husband, right? And he's into health and everything. And there was learning on his side too, because I noticed that I noticed the start of the weight gaining, but I think it was just because of a product of just being in a relationship and you're going out to eat all the time or whatever. So he was like, "Oh, try the bulletproof diet." And I tried it. I first tried it and I did it wrong. And so I'm like, in my head, I'm like, man, I don't want to disappoint him. I really want to try hard. I'm gaining weight, and I basically I don't want to disappoint my husband. I don't want, you know. So it's like I was kind of spinning my wheels because that was the anchor part in my mind. I don't want to disappoint my husband, so I'm going to keep trying to do what he suggests.
Yes. And so, did you get off that diet, and how'd you find what worked for you?
So how did I find it? I tried a lot of different things. So I would say I was yo-yoing from 2017 up until last year. Uh, I'll go to the gym 5 days a week, try one meal a day, uh, nutritionists. So let's say the first nutritionist I went to, it worked, but I still had, it's like with the yo-yoing, I still had a lot of underlying things that contributed to the eating. Because the first time I did the yo-yo, it ended up going into binge eating because, I would have one meal a day, and then let's say I had to travel for work and I eat whatever I want, and then I just can't control myself and food is so delicious. Oh my God, I love food, right? And that was like my comfort. So what actually got me over it last year, I was running against a brick wall because I was going to the gym a lot, trying to track my calories, trying to listen to nutritionists, logging everything I eat, journaling, working two jobs, trying to start up my consulting firm. And then on top of it, I was the person that people just, vent to. So trying to manage other people and their problems. So like I had a lot going on. And so like my cousin, she worked at a wellness facility, a wellness spa. And she was like, "Oh, you want to try a weight loss shot?" Because I did everything.
Hmm.
And I was getting to the point where I'm like, you know what, maybe this is just my body size. So I was like 170 pounds at the time. And like it was too much weight for me just because like my veins are small, like I was in pain and I just felt heavy. So I was like, you know what? I've tried everything. Let me try this. And with that weight loss shot, like you have no appetite. So I had to stop. I stopped everything I was doing. It forced me to stop everything and just be.
Yeah. So what was that, Ozempic, or were you on trizepatide or?
Trizepatide. Yeah, trizepatide. Hmm.
Okay.
And it's funny because I didn't even finish the whole protocol of the weight loss shot. I think a big contributing factor to all of my yo-yoing and everything was stress. So with being on the shot, I probably took six shots over 3 months, whereas a weekly shot you're supposed to take over like
Hmm.
9 weeks. But I skipped weeks, so I didn't need to take it.
That's interesting. So the interesting thing when we were talking about it was like uh when we first started out, we're talking about clean data.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have a right and left brain, and your right brain is your job, your consulting job is going on. And it goes back to the same thing in our personal lives. It was like, how are you handling all the data that were coming in? So the people are listening on here, conquering stress, physical, chemical, and emotional. And there's thousands of little things in each of those those main categories that can be corrupt data into your body. Like I said, it could be a bad food, could be the wrong foods for your diet, could be the cortisol levels, it could be the mental stress that you're taking, it could be you not sleeping, it could be like that. So cleaning the data up. And I want people really to hear your story because you're the perfect person to resonate with someone. Female, you have your feminine roles as a new wife and your natural tendencies like that. I don't want to disappoint my husband and I want to do this. Um, your other hand is like, I'm going to kick ass and take names. I'm a leader. I'm a consultant. People rely on me. Sounds like you have a social group where you're the one that shoulders everybody's burdens. You're the rock that another masculine trait that you're coming in and you're just overwhelmed with what you have.
Mm-hmm.
And all those data points coming in create corruption. So garbage in, garbage out. And that's one of the people will focus on like one data point, like their diet or their weight. So um, I am intermittent fasting and I'm bulletproof diet and I'm Mediterranean and I'm starvation diet and I'm keto and I'm, sugar busters and I'm cabbage soup diet. You know, whatever. And it doesn't seem to work because there's other data points involved.
Mm-hmm.
So once you connected your dots on there and you just kind of stopped everything, what are your rituals now, or what did you pick up now to kind of maintain? Because you look great, you
Yeah.
look awesome, you're beautiful, you look fit, you look healthy, everything else. I mean, so what are your rituals now?
I have no food rituals. I eat whenever I want to eat. I don't eat when I don't want to eat. Ironically enough, with getting rid of a lot of stress, I guess maybe that's the ritual. It's like at the same time, I went through some type of, I guess you could say spiritual awakening, and I offloaded a lot. I basically told myself I'm not responsible for a lot of things that I convinced myself I was responsible for. And so making the little steps to basically prioritize my well-being. It did result in disrupted relationships. Relationship dynamics changed. Um, you know, some people who were in my life last year are no longer in my life now. But at the same time, it's like I'm the happiest I've ever been. Not because they're not in my life, but just because I put myself first. And if people don't want to be in my life because of that, I tell myself it's okay.
No, and that's exactly that's perfect. And this is again why I wanted you have on this, because you're a perfect rendition of a lot of people that I get questions from. It was, well, I've tried this and I've tried that. And you're living proof of the physical, chemical, and emotional components of stress and how it affects your body. So I want to go back into the connecting the dots on everything else. So once you've done that, you're going, who who was the first person that you interviewed for your podcast?
Myself.
And you told your story?
Yeah, basically how I got rid of anxiety. There was another one I had recorded, but I didn't post it because I was, at the time I was talking too much crap about my family. So, so I didn't post that one.
But one of the things is, in Abraham Maslow, you familiar with Abraham Maslow, the
The
hierarchy of
hierarchy of
needs?
needs. Hmm.
So one of the things that, the basis of, I call it Maslow's basement, is that we have to have food and shelter and basic things to sustain us in life. Then we need a tribe. We're people are pack animals, so we need to be that protection. And in nowadays, we call it, the you're the average of the five people that you hang out with the most. And
Hmm.
this is how we build our identity. Then we kind of grow up. And then the last frame is self-actualization. And during that time, it's all about giving back and going, I went through this spiritual awakening and I want to share it with you. And one of the things when you're doing is when you finally, it was probably almost like your altar call when you said, this is Jessica Kice and this is connecting the dots. And let me explain my journey. And it probably did more for you than it did people listening on the first one.
Hmm.
And so I'm bringing this up again because you're the perfect person to be on this, because you're going to resonate with so many other people. Because it's different when I sit here and I talk about it, and I'm a doctor and I have all these education stuff that we do. But it's so vitally even more important to come over and listen to somebody that's done it and done it at that level and says, I get you. I was you. And I had to do X and I had to do Y. And then once I got this, and then I had cut myself, and you had clear data coming into your life. So you had a better outcome coming into the life. I mean,
Hmm.
I don't think it's any secret about what people need to do to be healthy, but it's just sticking to that point and feeling that identity shift
Yeah.
from I was I was this person and I was a yo-yo dieter to like, no, I got this. I am now this person. And as soon as you logged onto your YouTube channel and you made a decision that you had something to say, you've ultimately become a leader. And
Mm-hmm.
you have no idea how many people that you're really influencing. Just
Yeah.
whoever's going to listen to this, I wanted them to hear your story because I know how great it is, and who you came out the other side. Do you want to add anything to that? Because I have one more topic I want to just talk to you about real quick.
Uh, no, I think that was a pretty good summary. I think you hit the nail on the head. So What's the new topic?
Well, the topic is what we talked about before. Is that when we had a discussion before, we talked about ADHD,
Yeah.
and you're like, dude, I didn't know I. You said I had that, and I'm like, well, I kind of thought it was obvious. Um, but one of the things, because everything that you're talking about, you're an achiever, you're a leader, and you're the wizard. You know, there's muggles around the world. We have our half-bloods, and then are a wizard. And when I was talking to you before about, a lot of people, and sometimes it would be really nice. You clock in at 9, you do
Hmm.
what you're told,
Hmm.
you clock out at 5, you don't carry anything else with you from the job, you get a nice salary, it pays for whatever standard of living that you're at, you get a little 401k, you get some medical benefits, 2 weeks off to go and not work, and you get holidays off, and there's no rocking the boat. It's pretty solid. You can
Yeah.
have a couple hours before you go to work, and then you have the evenings and you have the weekends, and you can live with it. And a lot of people live with it, and there's nothing wrong with that, unless there's something inside of you that looks over that. Because if you're in these boundaries and you look over, um, then you start thinking. And somebody that has a mind like you that comes up and you're going, I've got all these data points coming in. I got like, and you're picking these things up, and that one thing that comes out that you're living the life, you're juggling, you got these things, and
Yeah.
something goes off to the side and you're unclear,
Yeah.
and you tend to hyper focus on that, because like, I got to figure this out, I can figure this out, I'm
Yeah.
not, this is not going to get by me. And
Yeah.
then you come up and you go, did it, and you look around and you go like, oh, everything else went to dog shit.
Yeah.
How do I do? And then there's that overwhelm.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like ADHD. And I was telling you that I think it's a superpower when it's controlled.
Hmm.
And what was it that made you go, oh, I have ADHD. I have these symptoms, and I have what's going on.
It was a little bit of a journey itself too. So I'm I love my Instagram algorithm. I think there's something with it, right?
Yeah.
And so for some reason I kept getting a lot of videos about ADHD in my news feed and like being neurodivergent. I'm like, I'm not neurodivergent. I don't have ADHD. Why is this in my feed? Okay. Then I have Joe on my podcast, Joe Ingram, and he's talking about ADHD and he's telling me some of the things. I'm like, do I have it? No, no, I don't have ADHD. Then I talk to you, and then you're like, oh yeah, that's ADHD. I'm like, no, 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 no way. And then I'm like, let me watch a YouTube video on this. And I'm like, oh my God, it's ADHD. Because you're right. Oh my goodness, I can't believe this. What do I do? I need to fix this right away. The hyper focus on it.
Mm-hmm. It was funny that when you said you talked to Joe and then you talk to me, we don't usually do that. Usually people talk to me and they're happier than when they talk to Joe Ingram. Um, but it's happened. But I see that a lot. At first, I see it clinically, and I just see it in whether I'm speaking or on that, and I'll point it out, and people will say, "Oh my God, I have to fix it." And me and Joe had this conversation a lot. And for anybody that's listening doesn't know Joe Ingram, that's a sales genius. You can catch him on War Games. He has a top 5 podcast in the whole business. He's my brother from another mother, and we get to have these conversations a lot. And we're both convinced it's a gift, and it's a superpower. The problem is when you know when you're trying to soar with eagles, and you're around pigeons, it's problematic because you don't fit into their boxes.
Yeah.
And when I mentioned Maslow's hierarchy of goals before, is that the second ring is, once you have food and shelter, you have to find your tribe. And if you're in the wrong tribe, you're always going to feel like an outsider, because you're like,
Yeah.
I don't think like that. And I want to do all these other things, and
Yeah.
I can't do like this. And there's
Yeah.
this one thing that I have to figure out, and everything
Yeah.
else goes. And I have this controlling thing. and but if you kind of come over to the cool kids club, that's what we call it, is we're gonna go, oh yeah, we get that. And you'll go like, oh, that's normal. I said, oh no, but it's common for us. Uh, and it is. And the schools have a big problem with that as well, because schools are made to fit you in a box.
Mm-hmm.
And so, well, if you act this way, or if you don't learn at this level here or this over here, and then they try to shove you in there, and you're fighting your nature.
Yeah.
It's when it becomes pathological, or you can't get around with other people, is when it becomes an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And the very thing that you did with your weight in your podcast and all the conversations you have is connecting the dots again. Part of the reason why your level of greatness, or that drive, I've been studying and pondering and trying to figure out, fix,
Yeah.
ADHD kind of thing, is I don't understand this illness. I can't not sometimes. If I want to run a Spartan race, or if I'm at the gym and it's time just to really kill it, and I got to break and it hurts and it sucks and like that. And don't tell anybody, but sometimes I just want to cry or vomit at these things. Or there's a program or a podcast like this that I want to start. I can't not, because there's something to say. And even if there's nobody listening, I have to create. And it's just for mental health on doing, because I just feel like that there's more information that people need to know. But it's not true. Not everybody needs to know it, wants to know it.
Mm-hmm.
But those few people that do, it's gold.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to kind of reiterate the things. It's probably no accident that you're dealing with corrupt data and how to clean it up, because one side of your life is managing that stuff.
Yeah.
The other stuff, personally, where it's emotionally connected, is you're discovering that, which is even more important, because people will remember about 30% of what they learn over a month period,
Mm.
but you'll remember 100% of the things you discover, because
Yeah.
it's an internal thing that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm just vomiting information on you, that's different.
Yeah.
And when somebody goes through a journey, when they're connecting their dots, and there's somebody that's been there, like you're the little Sherpa, and you're just
Mm-hmm.
taking them on that journey,
Yeah.
it's a pretty awesome thing. So I your ADHD, your superpower, and everything else is kind of coming through. And now that's another thing that you just have to ride with. But I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to make those points out, not only for you, but again, you're exactly the people listening to this. They're going to see so much of themselves in you, and the fact that you came out the other side, and you're like this beacon. You go like, Jessica did this, and Jessica went through this, and now she's sharing it with others, and
Mm-hmm.
you're an inspiration.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I think you're awesome.
Thank
But there's going to be people listening to this, and they're going to be enthralled by who you are and what you do. How can they find out how you're connecting the dots?
you. Yes, yes. So definitely check out my podcast. It's on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, I think some other platforms, called Connecting the Dots with Jessica Kice. My Instagram is Jessica Kice, Jessica_Kice. TikTok, Jessica_Kice. Uh, LinkedIn, you can find me Jessica Kice, or Jessica Kice White. Yeah, so that's where you can find me.
Well, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out in between the two jobs to have this discussion. Because once I talk to you, I'm like, oh, you know what? This is the perfect person for people to resonate with, and see not only that it's possible, that they're not alone. When people are going through crap, they want to know that everybody thinks like it's only them.
Yeah.
because nobody posts that on their Instagram.
Yeah.
We're looking at people's highlight reels, and meanwhile we're living in our boot camp, and it sucks and it's ugly and everything else. I said, but to let people know that everybody else is going through it, and some people that thought they were muggles turned out to be pretty good wizards. So
Yeah.
I want to thank you for that, and having everything else going on. I said it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you
And
so
let
much.
me get over here. Um, you're doing awesome, and I want to thank everybody. So this is Dr. Bill Janishek on the Conquering Stress podcast. Jessica Kice, connecting the dots. I want you guys just to go back and listen with this and share this. And I keep forgetting, subscribe to the podcast too, because we're going to have more people as awesome as Jessica on here, because I want you to hear the stories of people just like you that connected their dots, put things together, and became the best version of themselves, and are happy to do so. And then when you do that, contact me, and I want you on the show, and I want you to share your story, because we're a tribe, and every person's just like a cell, and we get a cell, we put it together, it becomes a tissue. We put a group of tissues together, it becomes an organ, and you put a group of organs together, it becomes a body system. But we're the same thing: an individual, a group of friends, a community, a city, a time, until finally we get a movement. So our movement is to conquer stress and then just kick health's ass, so that we can live the best life that we can and carry our meat suit around to live a great purpose. Dr. Bill Janishek, your Belinda Family Chiropractic, and this is the Conquering Stress podcast, and we are out of here for right now. Click and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.